Good day everyone. Today we are going to be discussing about compound interest. Our objectives for this discussion would be to solve word problems involving compound interest and compute for the nominal and effective rate, as well as compare different varieties of compound interest. To further understand what compound interest is, let us first define a few terms that are very important for today's discussion. So the first term or words that we need to take note of is the word compound interest. As compared to our previous discussion about simple interest, compound interest is the interest resulting from the periodic addition of simple interest to the principal. So instead of just a one-time payment for the interest and a one-time addition of payment, there would be periodic additions now for the interest with respect to the principal. Okay, so another term that we need to take note of is the compound amount. So the compound amount is now the resulting value when the interest is periodically added to the principal, and this is the new sum, and it is used as the new principal for a certain number of periods. So again, as compared to simple interest wherein you have your initial principal and then the rate of interest will affect that given principal. For compound interest, it changes in terms of the different number of periods that you're going to be compounding or putting in your interest with, again, respect to the rate of interest and the principal. Okay, so an example of a word problem involving compound interest is this, what's shown here on the screen. So you're asked to compute the amount F or maturity value of a note. So usually it would be an amount, or maybe an amount borrowed or amount that was lent to a certain person or institution, and in this case there will still be a unit of time. So in this case it's at the end of 3 years given the principal or face value, which is 1,000 pesos. So we still have the principal with an interest rate. So we still have the interest rate at 10%. However, that given interest rate will be compounded at a certain period. So it will be compounded annually. Okay, so the different periods wherein the given interest will be compounded to that given principal is denoted, or we could compute that through the conversion periods. So the conversion periods is the time between the successive interests are computed or they are put into account in terms of, again, the principal and then the compounded amount. Okay, so we use a few notations to denote and to identify the conversion period. So for this session, we're going to denote the conversion periods as M, while N would be the total number of conversion periods for the whole investment term or for the whole investment unit of time. So it will be either in 3 years, and then it will be compounded based on the number of conversion periods indicated. Okay, so what are the different common conversion periods that we might encounter? So the common conversion periods with respect to the notation M would be, if it's annually, M would now be equal to 1. If it's semi-annually, there would be 2 compounding periods wherein it will be on the first half of the year and then on the second half of the year. So hence there are 2 conversion periods. So if it's quarterly, so there are 4 conversion periods because quarterly is every 3 months. And then finally, another common conversion period is the monthly, and there are also other conversion periods, but we are going to be discussing that later or in another video. So to compute for the total number of conversion periods and to form your whole term, or in terms of the whole term, we use the notation N. N now stands for the product of the term or the time multiplied by the number of conversion periods M. So we have that N multiplied by, N would be equal to T, which is the term, multiplied by the conversion periods or number of conversion periods M. Or simply N would be equal to T times M. So for other references like other books or other videos that you might see or watch, there might be a different notation. But remember, n there, or the value or the total number of conversion periods, is simply just the product of the term and the number of conversion periods, hence the total number of conversion periods. Okay, so moving forward, let's say we have a term of 5 years. So depending upon the conversion period, so if it's compounded annually, that would be a product of 5 and 1. If it's semi-annually, so that's 5 times 2, so your n would now be equal to 10. If it's quarterly, that's 5 times 4, so n would be equal to 20. And if it's monthly, that's 5 times 12, and that would be equal to 60. Okay, so the interest rate now, there's also a bit of change, no, as compared to the simple interest. Since for the interest rate, with its notation R, it will be expressed as an annual or yearly rate and must be changed to the interest rate per conversion period. So we'll now have a new notation for another rate. So you don't need to be confused, no, for the different rates that you might encounter for compound interest, because sometimes the given rate would be the interest rate, but you need to compute for the periodic rate. So again, for this discussion, the periodic rate would be equal to I. So I now, or the rate of interest, depending upon the conversion period per year, would be solved by dividing the interest rate, the given interest rate, by the total number of conversion periods, M. So you could find I by dividing the interest rate R by M. So let's have an example of that, no? So in this case, so compute the amount F for maturity value of a note at the end of 2 years if the principal or face value is 2,000 pesos and the interest rate is 6% compounded annually. So in this case, we have an interest rate of 6% if it's semi-annually. So semi-annually, for a conversion period, that would be M equals 2. So in this case, our periodic rate, which is given by 6%, so if we have I, we'll now have R, which is your interest rate, divided by M. So I now will be just equal to 3%, or if it's in decimal, 0.03. So if it's in decimal, 0.03. There you go. Okay, there are other values that you could refer to, no, but in terms of the interest rate and the periodic rate, that's what you need to take note of. Okay, so how are we going to find the different values, no, involved in a given word problem involving compound interest? So there are values that you need to take note of, like F, which is the final or compounded amount, or minsan, or sometimes it's called the maturity value, no. There will also be the principal P, or the original principal. In some cases, it could be considered or called as the present value naman. However, for this discussion again, so we'll refer to them as the final amount, final value, compound amount, original principal, or present value. Aside from that, we also have the periodic rate, which we've discussed earlier, which is denoted by I, your total number of conversion periods, N, which could be solved by multiplying your term and the number of conversion periods, and then finally your compound interest, I. So to compute for the final value, or F, you just multiply the principal by the sum of 1 plus I. Take note, I here comes from R over M, no, raised to N, which is the total number of conversion periods. If you're specifically looking for the interest, so you just subtract, no, the final amount and the principal, and then you'll get the interest. Okay, so let's now move to a few word problems involving compound interest. So in this case, we are asked to compute for the amount or maturity value of a note at the end of 3 years if the principal or face value is 80,000 pesos and the interest rate R is 6% compounded semi-annually. Okay, so don't be worried about the different values that you need to take note of. So you could just simply list all of them, no, aside from the formula. So you need to take note of a set of number of, or a number of values, and then just substitute that, or transfer that to your given formula. So in this case, we could just identify the principal since it's already given, no, as 80,000 pesos. So we list that as P would be equal to 80,000. Your interest rate, which is R, is 6%. So you also have there 6% for R. The conversion period M could be easily identified since it's stated there it will be compounded semi-annually. So you have there 2, and then to get the value of I, so that depends upon R and M, so you just divide 6% by 2, so you'll get 3% or 0.03 in decimal form. In terms of the term, so the term now will be depending upon the given value here, which is 3 years. So you have 3 years there. And then N would be the product of T times M. So T is 3 and M is 2. Hence, you'll have N, which is equal to 6. From the given values that we have here, we just substitute that to our given formula. So you have P, which is 80,000. You have 0.03 as I, and your N as 6. So you just simply follow and simplify. What I do suggest when you're still in the middle of your solution is that you leave or try to indicate all of the different significant figures, no, or all of the available digits in your given, just like this one, no, so that there won't be a difference in your final computation. And then after you have your final value, it's only then the time that you round it off to either 2 or 3 decimal places. So as much as possible, try to indicate all of the digits in some of the values that you'll be computing in your solution. So just like what I have did here, or just like what I have done here, no. So and then finally, for our final answer, the final amount would be 95,524.17 pesos. So since we're only looking for the maturity value, you already have the value for that. If you would want to get again the interest, so the interest I would be equal to F subtracted by P. So you just subtract 80,000 from 95,524.17. Okay, so let's have another word problem again. So again, we need to just identify the given values and substitute that to our formula. So I'll leave it up to you to check whether I did a correct solution here. But for the final amount in our word problem, let's say the given on January 23, 2013, a man borrowed 150,000 pesos and promised to pay the principal and interest at 9% compounded semi-annually on July 23, 2016. So how much will he pay? So here, you need to identify correctly the different terms that we should take note of and then substitute that to the formula. So kindly check, no, if I did the correct solution here. But for my final answer, the man needs to pay 204,129.22 on July 2016. Okay, so let's move forward to another thing that we need to discuss, no, in terms of compound interest, and that is the present value. So the present value is defined as the principal which, if invested for the given time T at an interest rate R, will amount to F on the date F is due. So this is just a transformation of the given value that we have, or the given formula that we have earlier. So this came from the final value F, which is equal to P multiplied by the quantity 1 plus I raised to N. So we just transform this, no, to get the principal or the present value. So this might be a bit tricky in terms of identifying what you need to find. Would it be the maturity value or the present value? But you need to take note that the present value or the principal is the amount invested, or either your scenario or word problem might involve borrowing of money. So this would be the original or the principal amount that is borrowed. So those are the things that you need to take note of in and when you're differentiating which formula to use. Would it be the future value or the present value? Okay. So let's say we have a word problem here. If money is invested at 9% compounded quarterly, find the present value of 150,000 pesos due at the end of 2 years and 9 months. So just like what we did earlier, we need to identify the values that we need to substitute to our word or for our formula rather. So here we already have the future value since the future value would be 1,000 or 150,000 pesos, and we need to find the present value. Hence, we're using the formula that we have here. Okay, so given our future value, which is 150,000 pesos, and our interest rate, which is 9%, we could get our periodic rate I by dividing 9% by 4. Why 4? M is our conversion period since it will be compounded quarterly. Hence, 9% divided by 4 will be equal to 2.25% or simply 0.0225. Okay, for the number of years T, you have 2 years and 9 months. 9 months here is divided by 12, hence you'll have 0.75 years there. So we still transform this into decimal form so that it would be a bit easier for us to solve and substitute in our formula. And then finally, why do we need T? Since we need to find the total number of conversion periods. So for the total number of conversion periods, you have 2.75 multiplied by 4 since that's T times M. Hence, N would now be equal to 11. Substituting those values to our formula, you have that there. So kindly check my solution. But our final answer and my tip a while ago, so try to include all of the available digits in your computation. So notice here, I've included all of the digits, and even for a part of my solution which contains somewhat the final answer, I've also indicated these digits. And then I've only rounded it off to the nearest second or to the nearest 2 decimal places, taking note of the other digit. Hence, I'll now have 117,434.25. So the money invested at 9% compounded quarterly after 2 years, which amounted to 150,000 after 2 years and 9 months, was 117,434.25. Okay. So I just try to disregard this one. I think I've mistakenly copied that from my previous given. However, so we still have the correct answer here, which is 117,434.25. Okay, so moving forward, let's have another word problem. So a financial obligation of 56,500 pesos is due on January 6, 2017. What is the value of this obligation last July 6, 2011 at 12% compounded semi-annually? So notice how the word problem is presented, and how is it worded for you to to help or to provide you with clues whether you're looking for a future value or a present value. So in this case, the word what is the value of this obligation last July 6, 2011 indicates that it was before or prior the given date here, which is January 6, 2017. So that was, or it indicates a principal or a value invested or borrowed. So in this case, it's borrowed, since it's a financial obligation. So the future value given is 56,500 pesos because that's the obligation and that's the amount that needs to be paid. So let us now look at the values that we need to identify. So you still have those listed there, and check whether I've correctly substituted those values. But the value or the obligation last July 2011 was only 29,500 pesos and 10 centavos. So after around how many years? 5.5 years, that 29,500 0.10 pesos became 56,500 pesos. So please take note of that when you're borrowing money or trying to look for financial help with regards to the compounded interest. Okay. So moving forward, aside from simply finding the amount and the present value or the principal, there's also instances where you need to find the term or the time involved in your word problem. So the time or the term refers to how long it will take that certain sum of money to amount to a certain other sum if it's invested at a certain interest rate. So take note, there's quite a number of certain words there because it's not indicated exactly. So we need to consider that as well. So in terms of finding the time, so we use the formula T here, which would be equal to the logarithm of the ratio of F over P. So that's the future value divided by the principal all over the logarithm of 1 plus I, which is your periodic rate. So this is considered as base 10. So in your in your calculator, you could just use log and then indicate the result from dividing these values F and P, and also find the sum of this 1 and I, and then get its logarithm. And then after that, you just need to divide that by M. So let's look at a given word problem to understand clearly how are we going to use that given formula. So in our word problem, how long will it take for 4,500 pesos to amount to 6,100 pesos if the interest rate is 5% compounded quarterly? Okay, so in this case, you have the formula there since we're looking for the time. How long will it take? You have the future value, 6,100 pesos, and a principal of 4,500 pesos because that 4,000 pesos accumulated a certain amount, based on the interest rate, which is 5%, and it will be compounded quarterly. So it's reflected there what we need to take note of in our word problem. Okay, and then finally, we just substitute those values. So we have that the logarithm of 6,100 divided by 4,500 all over the logarithm of 1 plus 0.0125. So that came from I, which is R divided by M, or 5% divided by 4, or simply 1.25%, or 0.0125. Simplifying further, we'll now have T, which is equal to 6.122175,186 years, or it will take around 6.12 years, or about 6 years and 1 month for your 4,500 pesos to become 6,100 pesos. A quick tip for you to identify how many months will be indicated based on the given decimal is by multiplying that decimal to 12. Okay, so if it's, let's say, 0.12 multiplied by 0.12 will be about approximately around 1 month, So if you would want to be a bit more exact, you could also take note of the other values that could indicate the number of days, number of hours, number of minutes, and even number of seconds. Okay, so let's move forward since you already know how to use the formula. Okay, so we have another word problem here. How long will it take for 7,700 pesos to amount to 21,100 pesos if invested at 6% compounded semi-annually? So I'll leave it up to you to check for this word problem. And let's try moving to our next value that we could identify when we are given with a word problem involving compound interest, and that is finding the rate. So for finding the rate, there's a bit of a transformation there, or a bit of manipulation in our in our formula, but it would still came from our previous value that we have, or the previous formula that we have. We also have there multiplied by or times 100% to indicate that our final answer will be in percent form. Okay, you could also disregard multiplying it by 100% if the decimal form of the given rate will be accepted as the final answer. But if it's in percent, so you need to multiply that by 100%. Okay, so we already know the values, no, or how to find the given values like the M, the N, the P, and the F, which is the future value, present value, or principal. Your number of conversion periods. N would be the total number of conversion periods, and we're finding the rate. Okay, so from there, let's have this word problem. If 3,050 pesos accumulates to 8,660 pesos in 5 years, what is the interest rate if it's compounded monthly? Okay, so in this case, we have the future value, which is 8,660 pesos, your principal, which is 3,050 pesos. You also have your term T, which is 5, your total number of conversion periods, M, which is 12. Your N could now be computed by multiplying these two, hence your N would now be equal to 60. Substituting that to the formula that you have there, kindly check now for each line if I did the correct substitution, and if I considered all of the other digits in my given. But eventually the interest rate will amount to 21.05%. So that came from 21.05402702%, since I've already multiplied that to 100%. Okay. So let's move forward. There's another word problem now. So find the rate compounded quarterly if 745,000 pesos accumulates to 786,000 pesos in 3 years and 9 months. Okay, so we have the values indicated here. The formula is given here. The substitution is already given here, no? So what you need to do is to check if I've arrived at the correct answer. But for the interest rate compounded quarterly, it would be around 1.43%. So it's very small interest rate at 1.43%. Okay, so there's a few word problems here that I will be showing you, but feel free to try answering these word problems, but I'll try to include this as well in your assessments, no? So it would be a boon for you or a great help for you if you try solving for this with the things that you have learned about in this session or in this discussion. So try to apply what you have learned in solving for this application, but I'm not forcing you to do it, no? So if you have the free time, try to do this one, or I will be assigning different assessment for you in your learning management system or in your LMS. Okay, so with that, thank you very much everyone, and have a great day. So I'll be showing the other half of the word problems that you could try answering that you have here. So again, bye bye everyone, and see you on our next video.